I never try and let copyright get in the way of a good podcast. Also, the fact I'm playing this through my mobile phone into the speaker suggests probably need to up my game a little bit. Spanish acoustic guitar, classics. This will get flagged. Copyright strike. Hey, but they're the lengths I go to when I'm trying to bring you some tunes from around the world here on the Pop Culture Podcast. There's a reason it's your 9th favourite podcast. It's because of this kind of thing. I mean, they go for days. It's just good thinking music, I reckon. You can't really argue with that, can you? Like, how do you not think clearly like this? People are always talking about supplements, hydration, diet. What about the thinking music? Wow. Just had a great thought. See? Wow. Another one. Wow. Another one. Okay, I'm being silly now. But that is what I like to have playing in the background when I'm trying to do something a little productive, because I don't know, it's nice to have something there to entertain you, just as though you're going about your daily business. The boring stuff, the more mundane stuff. If I'm ever sitting there washing the dishes, which is rare, I'm going to be honest, I'm married to a great woman, very traditional woman who, I try and handball the dishes to when I can, which is regularly. I'm good with my words. The truth is, I'm usually upstairs tucking in our kids, so I don't get too uptight. Can't be making jokes like that in 2022 without a couple of bitches getting upset, can you? And by bitches, I'm not just referring to women. I'm also referring to those, to the men who don't have a girlfriend. Haven't quite figured out the game yet. I'm like old Popplestone here. Got it all figured out. Jessie's not here. She can't tell you that it's not true. But I'm doing my best. How are you guys going? Hope you had a great week. So I'm coming at you a couple of days late here because what did we do last week? I've actually got no excuses, I don't think. It's just been a busy last couple of days, and I thought, well, the timing's just right today. The timing's perfect. Things have settled down a little bit. Got an hour before I go to the gym, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to put my blue knit sweater on because I want to look good for you guys. I don't just want to come out with wonderful stories. I want to make sure it's very appealing to the eye part of your body. Oh. What's been happening in your world? If you listened last week, I was up in Cairns, up in far north Queensland, with my mother-in-law and my wife, my little boy. We flew back last week on Tuesday. I tell you, it was such a funny trip. So my wife's the admin queen. I think I told you about the trip up there. We went to the wrong airport. On the way home, it was a Tuesday morning. I just got home from a 30-minute easy run. And as I got home, my wife was out the front laughing. She goes, "Hey, you'll never guess what's happened." I go, "Babe, talk to me." She goes, "You know how we thought we were going home Thursday?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "No, we're booked. Well, me and Charlie are booked for tonight. How do you feel about staying 2 extra days with my mum, your mother-in-law?" I said, "Look, I've got a pretty good relationship with my mother-in-law, so I'd be more than happy to stay. But truthfully, I'd rather come home with my family." And she goes, "Well, let me see what we could do." So we called Jetstar and we paid them $125, just a sneaky little deal to say, "Hey, can you get me on the flight with my family?" And that we did. So we went to the airport that night, cut short by a couple of days our trip to Queensland, which was good. I mean, it's nice to tap into some of that warmer weather at this time of the year. Scary work flying with a kid, though. It's very, very nerve-wracking because my kid, Yeah, I don't want to throw around the word psycho loosely, but when you've got as much energy as he does, and you can find such a small space as a domestic airplane, aeroplane. Don't know why I went American on you there for a minute. It's quite daunting because people pretend that they're patient in most instances with a crying kid, but you can only do it for so long before you crack. And even if you're faking that it's not a real issue to you, we know it is. I've had kids crying on the plane next to me before and have faked that it's not an issue before. It's always an issue though. And so but then you're also being judged by the people who are on your flight. So we were sprinting around the little terminal. I wasn't. I was just following Charlie. He sprints like a moderate walk to me, just based on leg size. He's only 18 months old or 22 months old. So we were running around. I was trying to just burn off his energy. I was doing everything I could to make sure that this little guy had no energy by the time he got on the plane. So we were jumping over seats, we were sprinting around the airport. It was really inappropriate behaviour, probably for an airport where people are just trying to relax. My kids climbing up there, yelling at dad from the other side. It was, in hindsight, it's probably something that, as I reflect on it, it wasn't the right thing to do. But hey, you got to do what you know how to do. And I thought, well, the long term effect is that he crashes on the plane. And that he did. We got on the plane. We started to settle him down. He went psycho for a minute. We thought, oh, this is going to be rough. And then before you know it, in true kid style, they're always, how they say it's darkest just before the dawn. I think kids are most intense just before sleep, or when they're hungry. Yesterday, my boy was running around the kitchen, and he was just throwing stuff. And usually, I say to Jesse, I go, if you ever have trouble with Charlie, just let me know. I'm the baby whisperer. I'll show you how it is that you and I can get him back on track, behaviourally speaking. And yesterday was one of those days where it was just me and him, and I couldn't get him back on track. I'd lost him. So he's got like a little toy kitchen set. He was throwing the chairs on the floor yesterday. I did my firmest sort of no voice, because you've got to have a good no voice to be a dad. But at his age, I'm not sure if the discipline hasn't quite kicked in yet, or I just don't have any authority over my young son. But nonetheless, the response by him was the same. He kept throwing on the floor, so I kept hiding his chairs. Then he would pick up a toy truck, and I thought, okay, he's been a psycho. But the breaking point was I'd given him a Vegemite cracker. He threw that on the floor. I took a bite, and he just lost it. I mean, I've heard people say that if a praying mantis was the size of a cow, humans would be in a lot of danger because of the power, the sort of, what do you say, the power ratio that these guys hold. Like if they were the size of a human or a cow, they'd be able to chop a car in half with their little nippers. Charlie was swinging some pretty heavy punches yesterday, so I was thinking, I'm glad you only come up to just above my kneecaps, because one quick knee to the side of the head and you'd be unconscious. I wouldn't do it with his mum at home, but I mean, it's just nice to know that you have that option there. But he settled down today. He got a slight concussion based on it was just an elbow. I just went with an elbow. I didn't. He's a lovely kid. He settled down. He was just hungry. He's got to figure out why it is that they're frustrated, which you would think after nearly 2 years of being a parent you would know. But they're mysterious. They're mysterious little things. So, there's a lot of note taking. Everyone's got an opinion on how it is that you should improve their lives as well. What it is that needs to be focused on. Last week, I don't even know how we got into the conversation. We were at a cafe up in Cairns. We were at Palm Cove. We're sitting there was no coffee shops open, so we stopped off at a fish and chip shop and said, do you make coffees? The guy said, we can for you guys. So we said, hey, I'll get an espresso. My mother-in-law asked for an espresso martini, so we can't quite go that far. All we've got is coffee beans in a machine. My wife, she got I'm not sure that you even care about our coffee orders, but we were sitting there and Charlie was misbehaving, and my mother-in-law said, you need to smack him. And I said, oh no, look, we've chosen another path. We've chosen a very 2022 approach to looking after and raising a child, which is just using words, not with physical violence, which, I mean, sometimes I regret and I sometimes stumble. Do you know what I mean? Every now and then when no one's looking, I might slip a little elbow to the ribs or a little uppercut to the back of the head. It depends how naughty he's being, is the truth. If he's being really naughty and no one's around, I'll give him a nipple cripple. I'm not beyond giving my kid a nipple cripple. Do you know what I mean? People say he's 18 months old. You need to tread lightly. You need to understand that he doesn't understand. I said, well, will he understand this? And now I just twist his little tits so hard that if he doesn't understand, he's going to pick up, because 5 or 6 of those, and he's not going to have any nipples, or they're going to be heavily inflamed. Which I'm not 100% sure. My nipples are quite large, I think. I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. I'm not sure if it's genetic. I have seen my Poppy Bill's nipples years ago. He got up one morning in Adelaide, and it was a summer morning as well. It wasn't like it was cold. And he got up with full confidence, no shirt on, and I got a quick glance at his nipples, and I was flabbergasted. I was mind blown. It was preposterous, the size that they were. So I'm thinking maybe they've stemmed down from them, or my very own father has taken the same strategy of discipline as of what I did, and he's just gone for the twist. But I feel like I know my dad well enough to know that that'd probably be too soft for him. He would have just gone for the full uppercut. I don't think the idea of nipple grip, it was probably too subtle for him to be able to think could be of any effect. Yeah, but mine are abnormal, I think. I was comforted a few weeks ago because I saw Joe Rogan did a podcast, not a podcast, he did a live stream of him sitting in a cold plunge pool at the back of his house, I assume it was, and the purpose of the video was to show, hey, look how hardcore I am, I'm sitting in this very cold water. But I would say 80% of the comments were about the size of his nipples, and I thought, hey, if Joe Rogan's got nipples that are abnormally large, he's such a confident guy, well, I'm going to rock the size of mine as well, and that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. But yet, I've been doing a lot of, I've been sidetracked, and I forgot to tell you what. I don't know how we got to nipples, but we were sitting there, and my mother-in-law was talking about how we need to abuse our child to make a point. And the most bogan waitress I've ever seen walked past, and she goes, "Yeah, I bloody smacked all my kids. They've turned out just fine." This, just for clarification, I'm always happy if a family member or a very close friend puts up a good argument about why it is we should consider hitting our kid to make our point. I was hit as a kid. I was about to say which worked out okay, but depending on how well you know me, I guess you might challenge the very notion that I worked out okay. But it's subjective, isn't it? With the behaviour of 2022 that takes place all around the world. I mean, maybe I am normal. Maybe the way I've worked out is normal. Maybe it's the best way. But this lady, we'd never met her. She hadn't greeted us. She hadn't said hello. She felt the need to contribute her parenting advice. And honestly, if I was to judge a book by its cover, I looked at this lady and I thought, you know what? If I just walked past this lady down the street without ever having been introduced to her, I would look at her and I would think, you don't look like you know how to be a mum. That's just it would be the first thing that went through my head. I would go, oh, this lady would never have kids, because I'm not sure. I just don't think it's the best decision for her. But I mean, it hasn't stopped a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people that I went to high school with. In fact, I think I'm one of them who if you saw them in high school, you go, hey, maybe do the world a favor and just hold off on the kids. And yet here I am. I've got 1.5. And I'm going back for more. But this lady, she walked past and she goes, "Oh yeah, I've smacked all my kids. They've worked out fine." And I thought, I don't trust you. I don't trust you when you say they've worked out fine, because fine is also very subjective. And what's fine in your life might be an absolute disaster for mine. Do you know what I mean? Some people are fine, but they're alcoholics. Some people are fine, but they've lost both feet. And I'm not saying you can't be fine, but I'm just saying you can learn to develop a tolerance for what's probably not ideal. And I looked at this lady and I thought, well, you're 51 years old. You look as though you've abused. She did. I don't mean to say this in a harsh way. She looked relatively healthy. She had a nice smile. Do you know what I mean? It was nice to see. She had quite a lot of teeth missing. I was surprised that her workplace hadn't maybe pulled her up on that and said, hey, if you want to keep working here, especially because you're a waitress, we're going to need you to whack a little bit of just whack a plate in your mouth, just fill some of those gaps. And some of the blackness on your teeth, it looks like she had a coke issue. Not cocaine, I'm speaking Coca-Cola. Just the sugar content within those drinks. I can say that as well, because as a young kid, I used to think that fruit juice was very healthy. My main goal, do you remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, if something said it was 99% fat-free, in your mind it was healthy? Was that just my family? I'm not sure what happened there. I was so caught, I was obsessed with health growing up. I think I had issues. I think I had genuine issues of wanting to be healthy. But the truth was, I didn't know what was healthy and what wasn't. So I went to the fruit juice. I thought, that's just from apples. You can drink that. I've just drank 120 apples. But the problem was, I'm just getting the pure sugar hit from that. So I'm missing a couple of my back teeth because I went to the doctor or the dentist, and he goes, "Mate, what's happened here?" And I just thought, my teeth are brittle. But really, I think the sugar limit that I was hitting was well and truly over where it should have been. And she had a little bit of that going on. So I feel like I could sympathise with where she was at. But it's interesting how people have the confidence just to be able to throw their opinion at you. Like there's some people that I know who you don't ask for an opinion, you don't ask for their ideas. In fact, you probably, like, you don't even really value what this particular, which sounds horrible, but it's true. You don't even really value what a particular person thinks about whatever situation you're discussing, and they have the confidence just to be able to share it with you and go, okay, well, this is my thoughts on that. I said, when I said, like, no one asked. I didn't ask what you thought. And I had to bite my tongue so hard with this lady because stuff like that just rubs me up the wrong way. I just wanted to say, you know what, before you start giving advice on how I should raise my kid, can I just give you like a couple of waitress advice? Like, just before you come in with the parent advice, just come and say hello. Ask us how our day's been. Ask us, are we travelling or are we local? What would you like for dinner? She was just cleaning a table and she was just eavesdropping, which I can't blame her for, because I used to be a waiter as well at La Notte, an Italian restaurant here in Melbourne. Just yesterday I was talking to a guy, and I don't know why I did this. My wife was teasing me last night. La Notte, it means the night in Italian. And do you ever do that thing where, like, you're speaking English like we are, or you're speaking Australian English, and then you come across a foreign word like La Notte, and you find yourself just delving deep into the pronunciation that they would use in whatever the origin of the country was? I always do that. It's so, especially with Italian, I'm not sure what it is. I think whenever I'm trying to make a point, or whenever I'm trying to get something across, or whenever I'm trying to be cool, I go into this weird, I'm an Italian kind of voice. And people call me on it all the time. They go, well, like, what are you doing? You're Australian. You're more Australian than anyone I know. Why is it appropriate in your mind for you to start delving into speaking like you're from another country? And it's a very fair question. But yesterday I was doing a coaching call with one of the athletes that I coach, and I was telling him about this restaurant that I worked at, and I was full-blown Aussie, and then all of a sudden we got to La Notte, and I go, La Notte. And I looked at my wife, and she gave me a look like, what are you doing? What's going on there? But there's only certain languages you can do that with. You can't do that with, like, if you do that with Italian and French, it's beautiful. If you do it with Chinese, you're racist. It's what my mother-in-law does sometimes. Like, she'll call an Asian restaurant and she'll go, hello there, I was just after two fried rice. You go, wait, what? It's the same concept, but for whatever reason, doing it with the Chinese languages, it's inappropriate. I'm not sure what that is. Why is it inappropriate? It is very strange. It is very strange. I remember once I went out for dinner in Melbourne with my mum, who's old class is not a racist. She's just a lovely person. She's just a very lovely person despite your race, which is a really good way to be, I think. I think if there's one way to choose to be, it's maybe judge a person based on their character rather than the colour of their skin. That's something I learnt growing up. I'm not sure if that's still relevant, but to me, it served me really well. It served me really well. I treat most coloured skins and when I say coloured, I'm not referring to just the black. I'm referring to white, black, yellow, in between, whatever shade of colour you are. I'm going to treat you with respect, unless you're a dickhead. I think the dickhead factor is the only thing that's going to really throw me off. And I hope you treat me the same way. Don't treat me like I'm a bad guy because I'm a good-looking white man. You know, it's subjective. Someone thinks it. Treat me, if I'm a dickhead, then treat me badly. Do you know what I'm saying? But my wife and my mum and I, we went out for dinner one night, and we were walking along Glenferrie Road in Hawthorn here in Victoria, and we walked past a little Asian place, and Mum said to me, she goes, oh, if you walk past a cuisine, like be it Italian or Chinese or French or whatever, and there's a lot of people within that restaurant who look as though they're from the country that restaurant is representing, then there's a very good chance that that's a good restaurant. Because the truth is, if the people from the country that this restaurant's representing accept the food and approve the food, well, they can compare it to the real thing. They know what the real thing is like. So they go in there and you can't fool them. And we walked past this Chinese restaurant. There was a lot of like, I assume they were Chinese. You can't say for sure, because a lot of Asian countries, the people seem to look the same. But the same is true through Europe. Yeah, don't tell me you can look at an Italian, or you can look at a Spanish person, and just from their looks, say, I can tell exactly their origins. But that was fine between me and Mum. But we got to the end of the meal, and Mum tried to express her gratitude to the waitress for having us in there, and she said, "Look, when we were walking past, we saw a lot of your people in here, so we assumed that it was going to be a good meal." And the lady who, she was Asian by, like ancestrally. I think her great grandparents were from China, but the truth was she'd been here for not only her whole life, but I think her parents were raised here as well. She had more of an Aussie accent than what my mum and I had combined. And she goes, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean your people?" And Mum goes, "Oh, well, I knew what she was trying to express, but it just came out. It came out poorly, and it's the wrong part of town to be making racial stereotypes, because people are going to call you on it. Do you know what I mean? This is Hawthorne, where I think climate change is the main factor. The main point of concern in Hawthorne is climate change. It's that kind of crew. You shouldn't just do blanket statements about people, but I think they're all about improving climate change, and they hate Donald Trump. I think it's that kind of crew, which is fine. But you got to know where to bite your tongue a little bit. I think you got to bite your tongue around some people. During the COVID lockdowns, I put up a Facebook status saying, "Look, hey, I've had enough of lockdowns. I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, this seems silly that we're still doing this," because I think we're in the 5th one here in Victoria, and we kept getting told, "No, we're doing this because we've got to stop the spread or slow the spread." But the spread was just going. It was going apeshit. Essentially, it was going quite dramatically. It was actually, I think it was the speediest spread of. It seemed to go faster as we were in lockdown. So I just did some simple mathematics, and I thought, okay, well, if it's going crazy and we're in so-called lockdown, surely we don't do lockdown anymore. And I thought, well, people will appreciate that thought, so I'll put that out on Facebook. And I've never been so heavily criticised on a status in all of my life, and there's a couple of people there. It got into one of those real medical debates between myself, who's got like no medical background, which doesn't rule you out of the conversation, I've realised, because there's a lot of people in the medical scene who are also incredibly wrong, as much as we don't like to admit that. But there's something about us that just, I think we really appreciate a degree. I think a degree in some things are good. Like if my surgeon didn't have a degree or any time of study, I'd go, "Oh, is there any other surgeon that I might be able to have? Can I have a guy that doesn't have a face tattoo and a history of ice use?" I just want to make sure that he's sober, because it's just really important to me that throughout this operation he knows where he is, and he's not in the middle of a hallucination thinking this is just a big dream and the results don't matter. But then there's certain things like the epidemiology. Like epidemiology, I don't really even understand what the word means. Doesn't it just mean like looking at I'm not even going to try and assume that I know what it means. But there was just put it this way, there's a lot of people without any degrees who are involved in these debates. And for whatever reason, we constantly pointed our finger to those with degrees and said, these guys know. And the people who were supposed to know, they just didn't know. And so, I don't know, there's one particular guy, he's actually a great guy. I saw him on Friday night. At a comedy gig. He deleted me on Facebook and Instagram, and I said, "Mate, what are you doing? We're friends." He goes, "Yeah, but I just can't afford to have misinformation in my face." I go, "Whoa, we don't know that's misinformation yet. It's just an opinion that you get in trouble for speaking about openly. So can you just keep being my friend? I just want to keep being your friend." And he's like, "Nah, man, the friendship's done." But I think, truthfully, it was a fairly highly strung time, not just for me, but for everyone else. We're all going through something emotionally. I mean, good luck being locked in your house for a couple of years and managing that well. So I think we all deserve to have a little bit of slack cut on us, because it was pretty emotional. But still, I went into this gig the other day, and I saw him and a couple of his friends there, and I thought, oh no, they're not going to like the jokes that I had planned for tonight. So I changed my set a little bit, because I thought, I don't want to make it uncomfortable for everyone. This is going to be too controversial. Man, I can't give you the whole joke now, because it takes a while to lead into it. It's a bit of a story joke, so I don't want to just take the next 5 minutes to take you through it. But it's gone very well a couple of times, and it's absolutely, it's a really weird one. I think it's bombed it's bombed harder than any other joke, but it's also killed harder than a lot of jokes that I've done as well. So it's a real flip of the coin. I think you just can't do the joke in some areas like where this Chinese restaurant that I went to with my mum was, because that's the kind of crowd that don't really appreciate it. That you can't be saying that when you're focused on climate change, I don't think. Anyway, but we flew into Melbourne from Cairns last week, and it's funny. I've been flying for years now. I obviously had the last couple of years off, and I'd never heard anyone make a reference to the land that we're about to land on. But this is really big in Australia at the moment. Like I'm not sure what it is. If it's just like maybe a deep regret for the way that, the people who originally came to the land treated the Indigenous community here. But it's like no matter how many times people say sorry, it's not enough. We've got to keep going. And it just seems to infiltrate everywhere. Like I'm fine to acknowledge, what the land was before we got here for sure. But like I just don't want to have to do it every football game, every basketball game. Now every flight, I got on the flight, and as we were coming into land, the air hostess jumped on the microphone saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Melbourne. It's 23 degrees. We're going to be landing at about 10:05 a.m. Just before we land, we'd like to acknowledge the fact that we're landing on stolen ground. This used to belong to the such and such a tribe, blah, blah, blah." And there's this weird look of pride on the face of the people who make these claims or who make these acknowledgements. And there's also this weird level of acceptance amongst the rest of the plane. Some people were just looking like, yeah, that's beautiful that they do that. That was the vibe they gave me. But I thought, isn't it crazy that, like, I had I had my bike stolen in London a couple of years ago, right? And about 4 days after, which is crazy considering when we were in London, 4 days after, the bloke who stole my bike, he rocked up at a cafe on my bike to get his coffee. And I immediately recognised that it was my bike because it had a couple of distinct features. And I said, "Mate, that's my bike. You took it. Did you steal it?" He's like, "I did steal it, but I've updated a little bit. So it's like it used to be your bike, but now it's more mine now." And I was like, "Dude, it's not. It doesn't work like that. Just because like it was my bike, and now you've updated the wheels and you're calling it mostly yours." He's like, "Yeah, look, but I would admit." It was your bike originally. I go, "Mate, I'm not sure what's happened here." He's like, "Look, I've acknowledged what you said. It's your bike, but now it's mine." I said, "Can I have it back?" He's like, "No, but I will admit that it was yours." I go, "Well, if you admit that it's mine, just give it back." And I was so confused, and I felt like I was making a good point, and the people around me were like, "Yeah, I feel like there's no flaws in your argument there." But isn't it funny, like with this air hostess, I said, "Look, what? We just admitted that. Did you just admit it's stolen?" She goes, Yeah, it's stolen land." I go, "Shouldn't we give it back?" Like, "Nah, because when we stole it, it was just a billabong. Now it's it's a giant airport. Like, it's not a fair trade." I go, I know, but don't you think it just, like, it's strange to me that, I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? It's strange to me that, like, in the announcement, we're the thieves. And I was always told, first of all, don't steal. But second of all, if you make a mistake and you steal, like, when you come to your senses, just give it back. So here's the thing: either admit that you stole it and give it back, or stop going on a bit. Like, you can't. How have we got to a point where the thieves get to brag about how high and mighty they are? Does this make sense to anyone else? I was sitting there, I was racking my brain. I thought, okay, so it used to be a billabong, now it's an airport. We're not giving it back because it's worth more than what it originally was. They're like, yeah, but we acknowledge that it wasn't ours originally. I was like, I feel like, anyway, we're living in such weird times, aren't we? Are we living in the weirdest times? That just seems so strange to me. I don't understand. There's certain news articles that are going around at the moment that I think highlight or magnify the strangeness of the times that we're living in. Because, do you call it, it's not as lefty, is it? It's like, we're living in very politically correct times where you just can't make a wrong move, otherwise you lose your job and your family goes to jail. I'm pretty sure is the best way to explain it. I want to show you a couple of these articles that I found this week, because I feel like they kind of highlight what it is that I'm referring to. I just want your thoughts on this. So, Here's one that I found. I found this morning, and I just want to know what your thoughts are. All right, so be honest with me. Let me know your thoughts here. Oh, where have I put it? Oh, here we go. All right. News.com.au. So you know I'm just not making stuff up. First day of affirmative consent laws in New South Wales. New laws have come into effect in New South Wales on Wednesday that mandate a very important discussion in intimate settings. Interesting. The new affirmative consent laws have come into effect across New South Wales on Wednesday. In a move the state government hopes will revolutionise sexual consent, New South Wales has implemented the state-first laws requiring affirmative consent before sexual interaction. Okay, so essentially, you gotta ask the person, which I mean that seems fine, but surely I think sometimes actions speak louder than words. I think if you can just read a room to any degree, you're going to know whether it's on or whether it's not. Maybe it's more difficult when you're young, isn't it? Because you're not 100% sure. You're not 100% sure how far you should go. I remember the first. I won't get into that. According to the newly enhanced legislation, I know I just left some dangling fruit there, pardon the pun, but yeah. According to the newly enacted legislation, a person can't reasonably believe someone wants to have sex with them without a clear sign or verbal cue. Well, to be fair, a clear sign or a verbal cue opens it up a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, if things are getting a little bit hot and heavy, I mean, there's plenty of clear signs that things could go further, unless there's like this invisible barrier between, I don't know. Let's keep reading. Attorney General Mark Speakman said the new laws clarified the person needs to do or say something that gives permission for sexual activity. That's the rule anyway, isn't it? You can't just be going up to the waitress and start having sex with her, because that's rape. Like that's legitimate rape. But I mean, if after her shift, you know, you guys went out for a coffee, you had a couple of drinks, you invited her back to your place, she said yes, you had a few more drinks, you put a movie on, things got cuddly, you looked across, she had her shirt off, you go, hang on a second, like things are heating up quite quickly here. That's a fair sign. So the do or say, that's the rules anyway, isn't it? I feel like the only time it changes, like when you're single, they're the rules. When you're married, I feel like it's the reverse of that. Most of the time, like I'm just generally speaking, most of the time, there's other things that the couple wants to do than have sex, and you've got to put on a real convincing act to go, hey, you know those birds dancing in the Amazon, and how you got to do like a really sexy act to win the person over. I feel like that's what marriage is. You have to do that real sexy dance, sometimes literally, and just sometimes with the moves that you've learnt over the last 10 years of marriage. But I think the consent is the very last thing that comes. I mean, there's so many puns on the words that I'm choosing right now. I just don't even want to go into that. Like, I'm trying to keep this PG as I can, but to say that's the last thing that comes is a ridiculous statement while we're speaking about the stuff that we're speaking about here. The New South Wales government hopes the clearer rules of engagement, I don't feel like they're any more clear. They've been the rules forever, unless you're a rapist. The engagement will reduce the rate of sexual assaults. See, I didn't realise they were so high. In New South Wales, that the Bureau of Crime and Statistics has shown has risen by 4.8% over the last 5 years. This is the thing. There's an ad in Victoria as well. At the moment, it says, call out sexism, which is fine. If that's where the government wants to put their money, like feel free to do it. Personally, I find sexist jokes on both sides of the fence very funny, like whether they're going to a guy or whether they're going to a girl. Stereotypes in funny are fantastic, aren't they? Like, is there really a direct jump from jokes to violence? I'm not sure, but I was watching this ad the other day and I thought, I wonder if there's a bloke there who's genuinely interested in committing sexual assault, who sees that ad, not sexual assault, I've got two articles muddled up there, make a sexist comment, who sees that ad and goes, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore because the government says no. I see that and I go, hang on a second. Like, I literally saw that and I thought, okay, what are some really good sexist jokes that have been misunderstood over the years? Maybe I could refresh them and bring them to light in a brand new way. So it's had the reverse effect on me. I wasn't thinking about being sexist, and I saw that ad and I thought, man, but I mean, there's a lot of good material there. Let's get going. The new laws highlight that consent is an ongoing process and should be sought for each sexual act. That's a lot of admin, isn't it? It's a lot of admin. It's just, like, how does that work? How does that work? You get home, you go, hey, can I kiss you? And what happened to hard to get? Like, sometimes it's a little bit of a surprise where you find yourself, you go, oh, wow, we're here. Can I kiss you? They go, I give you consent. I mean, can I take off my shirt? Mm-hmm. Can I pull down my pants? You can. Can I take off my jocks? No, that's disgusting. What are you talking about? We all knew that we were just here for an underwear party. What are you, a freak? This is a really powerful campaign that I believe will make a massive impact. It won't make a massive impact, I don't think. In fact, I don't think it's going to change the conversations in the bedroom at all. As I said, yeah, actions speak louder than words. You'll know if you've gone too far, because there's that tension, or there's also that hip lift a little bit. Like, if you're, fellas, and just let me speak to the people that I know for a minute. If you're trying to remove underwear and there's that little hip lift, you go, okay, well, that's a yes. But if the bum buries into the ground a little bit more, say, no, these bad boys are staying on. You can't use that as a challenge to go, oh, okay, you're playing really hard to get. I think in that situation, she's gone, look, I don't want to say no, but this is the only way I know how to do it. There's been criticism, notably from high-powered lawyer Margaret Cunneen, SC, I don't know what that means, that the laws would create a large increase in sexual assault cases being processed in an already overburdened court system. That doesn't seem like a reason either. Look, we're flat out with sexual assault claims, so I reckon lowering the standard of what sexual assault is just going to make them. There's going to be a real back catalogue. So maybe we could just remove sexual assault from the whole program for a little while, and then there'll be no problems. Over the past year, calls from victims of sexual assault to the Centre have risen by 27%. Many of those calls were from new callers. That's not good, is it? Like, at least if it was a repeat caller, you go, okay, well, it's probably the same guy, or their standards are a little bit low. They're getting themselves into some shady areas that they probably shouldn't be in. Many of the calls were from new callers, and most would not go on to report the assaults to police, the spokeswoman said. So I think they just needed someone to talk to. The New South Wales Police Force is supportive of the move, simplify, blah, 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 blah. The new laws includes a scope for an evaluation of legislation. Okay. Anyway. So we're living in interesting times. It's a very strange place to find yourself to have to need the government to sort of just let you know how to navigate your way through a sexual act. Based on that, have you seen politicians as well? I mean, the people who's coming up with this legislature. I'm not sure what word I've just said. The people who's coming up with this legislation they're not the best looking men, or women, to be fair. Like, if you see a good looking man or woman in politics, the fact that Brett Sutton here in Australia was considered a good looking man for a while is probably a sign that, the competition's not that steep. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I thought it was very interesting. I feel as though there's a lot of jokes in there. I'm not going to go into it now just because I don't want this podcast to remove from every platform which podcasts are available on. But here we go. This podcast, it could actually just be dedicated towards that whole thing. Before we move on, let me move from those coconuts to another coconut story. Do you know? Before we left Cairns last week, I was doing a little outdoor workout. I was doing some bicep curls. Not bicep curls, I was doing some chin-ups for my biceps, and this guy came up to me. He was working out at the park. He had a weight vest on. We started talking. I was about 10 minutes into a 40-minute workout. Anyway, me and this guy, we got talking, and he had moved from Wellington in New Zealand to come over to Australia. He just sold his house for a bit over $1 million there, and he was actually in the process of going over to Bali. He was going to create a retreat for people. It was a wellness retreat. So he's got a company called 36 ATP, and it essentially, the vibe I got was it's looking at a real holistic approach to health, from meditation to food. He had a real focus on like the limbic system is what it was called. And he was trying to talk about how so often many of the diseases and illnesses actually arise from problems within our limbic system and the stresses that we place on those. A really interesting guy to talk to, but about 45 minutes into about probably half an hour into this conversation, my workout had been paused. This guy's like, "Yeah, bro, I've got a coconut dehusker, and I've just been driving around Cairns and just cutting off coconuts from the tree." he goes, I went down to the beach yesterday and I was just dehusking like 25 coconuts, and people were coming up to me and like, hey bro, you're just dehusking some coconuts. I go, yeah bro. He goes, anyway bro, what I wanted to ask you was, do you want to come and sit in the back of my 4-wheel drive? We'll have a coconut together post workout. I thought, bro, that's exactly that's what you miss on social media, isn't it? I was sitting there after this guy just dehusked a coconut. I was having a chat to him about what he does, and me and him are sipping a coconut there together. I thought, man, what an experience this is, sitting in the back of a stranger's 4-wheel drive sipping a coconut. I think that's what you don't get in lockdown. I walked away from that. I've been thinking about it all week. It was so embarrassing as well because he cracked open the coconut. I tell you, I get paranoid in those moments. I'm thinking, because he went away and he put a hole in the coconut. He put a straw in the coconut, and then he brought it back, and I could sense like a slight bubbly nature within the coconut. And I thought, I wonder if this guy, because there was no one else around where we were. He was about my age, but he was pretty big. I thought, far out, I wonder, has this guy spiked my drink? Because there's definitely something bubbly there. So what was such an enjoyable conversation, I started to get paranoid. I started to think, am I feeling dizzy? Am I feeling sleepy? Am I going to wake up in a ditch at this guy's wellness retreat with a sore bum? And a lot of questions to ask, and looking for the number to report the sexual assault, because I hadn't given my consent because I was passed out. Do you know what I mean? If I was awake, I would have said 100%, you sexy little New Zealander. But based on the fact I was out, I couldn't give it to him. Do you ever get like that? Like he was such a well-intentioned person. I walked home, I didn't start hallucinating, I didn't fall asleep, I felt completely well, and I got home, and the next day I woke up and I thought, well, surely any of the effects that would have taken place if this guy was really trying to spike my drink, take advantage of me, would have taken place right now. And I thought, what, Tyson, why do you have to be like that? Why do you have to question the intentions of such a lovely bloke? But then I also think, I wonder if that's why my family throughout the years have made it through so many generations. Maybe like a slight level of anxiety is actually a good thing, because it keeps you on your toes, doesn't it? Like, yeah, if you're walking through a dangerous part of town, like, it's good to have a little bit of anxiety. It's just it's your brain sending a message going, hey, just stay alert here, because you might need to react really quickly in a moment. Like if someone jumps out with a mask on and a machete, you're going to need to act. So I think in that instance, it's quite good. But the truth is, 2022... unless you're living in these parts of New South Wales where these guys are, doing all the sexual assaults without consent, verbal consent. I'm not smiling at the sexual assault when I say that. I'm just smiling at the images that come across my mind as I riff on this, because I just think with me, be open. Like, what's the first physical act that you think of which would serve as consent to another person? I mean, it's up to you what you see just there. Some people would have just been total freaks and they've just jumped to third base. Some people are, probably a little bit less dirty than what you are, and they've come up with something more reasonable. But anyway, what I thought after that was, hey, it was a lovely experience, but a level of distrust had jumped into my mind, and I was waiting to essentially wake up in the back of this guy's van. I'm not 100% sure what the purpose of that story was, but I had it written down to tell you that I had a coconut with a guy up in Cairns. And the story, it was one of those ones that, those stories where you begin a story and then you get halfway through the story and you go, I don't know like what the interesting parts of this are. I don't know where the final destination I'm trying to get to is. I'm not 100% sure why I even brought this story up. There's no real reason that anyone but me had to know about this. It was one of those stories. As soon as I started saying it, I was like, hey, where are we going? The next story I wanted to tell you, though, is definitely not going to go there, because this one's actually interesting. On that same website, that news.com that I brought to you, the new legislation from the New South Wales government about not committing sexual assault because it's bad and people had forgotten. They also reported this morning that a human leg was found on the side of a road in the Northern Territory, and they're trying to find the person who it belongs to, which is, it's not funny. Like, the fact that a human leg is missing, or the fact that a person is missing their leg is very concerning. And it was just funny the way they reported it. They said calls are going out for the person to come and claim their leg. I thought, like, wouldn't that be that's all, I reckon? Surely they know it's missing. Like, if you've lost your wallet, I get quite stressed about that. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get home? It's got my MyKey card on it. How am I going to be able to fill up the car with petrol? That's got my card in there. How am I going to be able to do it? Surely it's next level if you've lost your leg. You can't get 200 metres down the road and go, oh shit, bro, oh bloody, I've forgotten something. I've got my wallet, oh fuck, bro, it's my leg. Where's my leg? What's happened to my leg? This is ridiculous. I've had such a tough day. I can't believe I've bloody left that behind. You don't need to put out a newspaper article to encourage the person to come forward to it, because first of all, well, I guess it would be helpful, because you're gonna see a bloke hopping down the main street of Darwin, and you go, hey, Peter, what's going on? You look different, mate. Yeah, bro, I bloody lost my leg. I thought something had changed. That person, like, they're doing everything they can to find it. Look, but you also wonder, like, why have they left it there? It's actually quite concerning, because the only things that come to mind about a person leaving their leg behind is that a serious transgression's taken place. Either the person's been hit by a car, and they've they were in a lot of danger, so they've had to hop away quickly, and they thought, I'll get that later, or it has to be drugs involved, doesn't it? Because no one in a real sane mind is going to be okay just to leave that behind and go, hey, we'll just see what happens. We'll see if we need it. I would say actually the most important part of my day, like especially as I get out of bed, it'd be the first thing I notice. If I got out of bed and just toppled over, I'd go, I've got to go collect that today. Hope someone's picked it up for me. Hope someone, those lost property baskets at school. You picture this guy going down to the local police station, just opening the lost property basket looking for a leg. Yeah, had a Nike shoe on it, bro. Had some Jordans. Oh, Australia. We're an interesting spot. We've been through a bit, old Aussies, in the sense that I think it's fair to say that I think we're mostly pussies these days. Like, we love going overseas and putting on this big show of how brave and how we're very carefree and nothing bothers us, and then COVID comes to Australia and we lock down for 2 years and people are still wearing masks, and we're just a very scared country. I think we're a very scared country. There's a lot of people who are living with a lot of fear. I don't know, maybe every generation has a moment where they look at their culture and they go, come on, what are we... Because, like, my mum used to always say that when I was a kid, we never bloody got caught up playing Game Boys. And now I'm a kid, now I'm a dad, I go, when I was a kid, we never got caught up in alternative realities with Oculuses on, that thinking that we're living in an underwater system as a fish trying to get away from a whale. We never did any of that, mate. We were just playing outside in the trees. So surely that's been going on for generations. I was trying to think that last night. Like, back in ancient Rome, what would the parents have said to the kids back then? Oh, back when we were kids, we never wasted our time just wanting to be a gladiator. We were out there just picking the grapes and getting on with life is what we were doing, trying to fight off these Christians who were trying to take over, huh? Trying to take over our bloody our Roman Empire with their little Christian empire. We were trying to fight them off with grapes is what I don't know. I'm sure it's gone on for a while. So maybe it's just built into us as humans to be maybe a little sentimental. Or maybe a little bit sentimental of the past. We miss what we don't have anymore and we reflect on. And you always look at it with rose-coloured glasses, don't you? Like, I never think about the days where I was just wondering why mum was 5 minutes late from picking me up from daycare and having a panic attack. I think of the times that me and mum went on like a roller coaster ride, and then afterwards she bought me an ice cream and told me I was a good boy. Like, you filter out the bad parts of your history. I think is true. Some people don't. I mean, you can just reframe it as well. A lot of people reframe it just by going into land on an airplane and saying, look, we're admitting this is stolen ground. It's a dark part of our history, but we've learned to live with it. But it's my land. Give it back. You shut up. You're not getting it back. You've asked that for years, but it's mine, isn't it? It was yours. Now it's not a billabong. It's the airport, you cockhead. So go back inside. I don't have a house. You've built an airport on it. That's not my problem. I've already said I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm sure that's something that every generation goes through. What are you going to do about it? It's bloody winter here in Melbourne at the moment. I think today's 8 degrees. I'm sitting here. You can't see it, but I've got shorts on. I've got a jumper on. I should be wearing pants. It's very, very cold. The last couple of days I've started to. So I do the ice water swimming most days. I didn't do it today because I hate going out there when it's really windy because like this is a bit embarrassing. But when it's really windy, the waves get super choppy, and there's not many people over where I swim. So I start freaking out thinking, oh crap, what if I bloody get dumped by a big wave and then my head hits the ground and I'm unconscious, I get swept out to sea, no one ever sees me again. It's just awkward. You're going to go over there and find my shoes, my phone, my jumper and go, oh, well, best of luck out there, Tyson. It's very cold and very dangerous. But today I didn't go out because it was a little bit windy. But when it's still, I get over there at the moment and man, it is getting fresh. I would guess, I think the water temperature right now would be at about maybe 12 degrees, which doesn't sound too bad, but if you hopped in 12 degrees water, it's bloody cold. I was doing these ice water swims over at Hampstead Heath when we were living in London, and the coldest it ever got, I think I got in at like 5 or 6. I think it was 6 that I got in at. It was bloody cold. And it's so embarrassing though, because people who have been doing it for a long time, they're very well accustomed. Their body's used to it. They're very relaxed with the cold water temperatures, so they can get out, they can have a conversation. But if you've ever got out of freezing water, one of the hardest things to do, I always find it really hard to control my mouth. Like my jaw's frozen, so the words don't come out properly. And I remember being so embarrassed because I just met a few of the local ice water swimmers over in the UK at Hampstead Heath, and they were taking an interest in me. They were asking me about why I was doing it. They were asking me about how long I was in London for. They were asking me about, what was my inspiration for getting into that ice water. And they were doing it all with such ease and with their pants off, mind you. They were very confident not to wear pants, even after being in that freezing cold water. And to be honest, they were putting on a show which, even if I just got out of a spa bath, I was probably going to find hard to match. But the difficulty for me was I couldn't respond. Well, it was so embarrassing because my jaw, I had like lockjaw. It's like a ventriloquist trying to talk, but without the training, I couldn't get the words out. And they were like, mate, it sounded like I was having a stroke. And I remember one of them going, mate, is everything all right? I was like, yeah, this is fine. So I was like, I guess. You start talking like that, you start getting all flustered because you realise how silly you look. And I've started to have those moments, like every now and then as I walk home. Yesterday morning I was walking home. There's a lady, she would have been 80, she was walking her dog, and she had like a fair limp going on, and she goes, oh, you're very brave. I go, oh, hey, so what's up? I was just trying to say the bare minimum. She goes, you're doing that every day? I said, I try to, like as long as it's not windy, because I don't want the chop to knock me out, blah, blah. She goes, yeah, every morning I come down here and I think, I should do that, but I just never do it. But she goes, now, good on you. You've got the rest of your day to feel good about yourself. And the days that I don't go over there, it's not like I just be a pussy. Like this morning I had a cold shower and it is so cold. It is really cold at the moment. I just try and do like at least a minute under the water, and then I just pump that hot for a little while. It's funny when you hear an 80-year-old speak like that, though, isn't it? Because there's certain things you just don't think of an 80-year-old to say. I just don't really picture 80-year-olds doing ice baths or even thinking about that. But then I had a conversation with my nan a couple of years before she died. She goes, Tosh, you know what I would love to do? I go, what is it, Nan? She goes, I'd love to skydive. I was like, what the heck? Really? Are you on acid, Nan? What's happened? Did someone spike your little hot chocolate? I'm really surprised by the fact you've just said that. So I guess that's the thing, though. Like your spirit doesn't really age as much as your body. So maybe maybe it's the body, like the physical breakdown of your body, which causes us to be a little more cynical, a little more grumpy. Or maybe it's just because you've seen more stuff. You've had a couple of goals that have sort of fallen short and you think, I don't know though, like maybe that real pure spirit deep within you that doesn't seem to die, I don't think. I hope. I would much rather be an 80-year-old thinking that I want to do an ice water swim rather than just like a cynical old person. Oh yeah. Hey, this is a bit of a random transition, but I wanted to talk to you about this as well. I was at a comedy show the other night, the one I was telling you about earlier, and there's a comedian up there, really big guy, like very big guy, self-professed, real big guy, like very big. He must have been about 50 years old, and I mean he's alright. He's a lovely guy, very personable, very very good. But he had a 25-year-old girlfriend, like a very young, very very quite pretty girl. I thought, that was really interesting to see, because you don't see that much, I don't think. Not really. Like you hear about cougars, but you don't hear about... Usually the guys who are dating the really young girls are the rich ones, but it was really interesting to me. I thought, man, like immediately you see that, you go, this chick's she's had an interesting background, I reckon. She's got an interesting story, because she would have plenty of options with like very good looking men around the same age as her. Now I don't think this guy that she was married to or dating was super wealthy necessarily. I could be well and truly wrong, but that's where you get used to seeing like the younger girl. Apparently Elon Musk is dating some 27-year-old Australian girl, and you go, okay, well he's 50. That's 23-year age gap, but he's loaded. Like there's a fair bit of prestige in that for the girl. Not saying that's the only reason that she's dating him, just saying very good chance that it's the only reason that she's dating him. Because like if Elon Musk was stripped of everything, had no money, had no business, then it's like what's the appeal? You're just walking down the street with a 50-year-old man who's a little bit Asperger's. But when you've got a little bit of power, when you've got reputation, when you've got money, it's amazing. So there's more to the game. If you're not a good-looking man, if you're not a good-looking guy, you don't have great social skills, I'm going to encourage you to start a multi-billion-dollar business, because with that comes fame and reputation, and with that comes the opportunity to date someone 23 years your junior. But I thought it was a very interesting place to find myself looking at, because I thought, I wonder. You just assume that there's something slightly off in a girl's mind like that, don't you? But maybe, I don't know, people are interesting. People see age and stuff differently. But for me, I was a little bit nervous. When I first got together with my wife, I was, as a 3.5-year age gap, I thought, that's right. I've got a friend of mine, India. She married a guy who's 14 years older than her. I think she married him when she was maybe 21. And that's a big gap. But 25 years, that's starting to get quite serious, isn't it? 25 years is a big age gap. Does it seem weird to you? My wife had an auntie who was married to a guy 18 years older than she is. I think things went really well with them, but yeah, they're very strange. Don't you think though? Don't you think that's true? That like when there's power and fame involved, it's a little bit easier to understand than what it is when it's just your regular bloke off the street. I'm not 100% sure. Do you know anyone like that? I'm trying to think if I know anyone like that. My mum was 30 when I was born. My dad was 22. He's just a bad man though. He was just doing his best. He was a good-looking bloke at the local footy club, and a couple of drinks in one night, they thought, oh, well, it seems like a good idea. Then I was born. Dad goes, oh, whoopsie, this is going to be a real change to the rest of my life. But that's 8 years. I think it's more common. I don't know anyone who's my age who's dating a woman who's 25 years older than them. What would that be? 35? That'd be a 60-year-old woman. I've got no interest in that. Firstly, because I'm married, I'm not on the market, I'm not looking. But secondly, because 60, my mum's 65 this year. She's got friends who are 60. I've got no interest in that. It is different with men and women though, isn't it? I think it's more normal for an older man to date a younger woman for whatever reason. It's funny, those little things, just how they work out. But good on him. I say good on him, because he was batting way out of his league. He'd done an incredible job. I was cheering for him, but it was just something that I kept watching, and I was like, this is so interesting to see. Like, we went to a reptile park up in Cairns, and I saw, what are those giant lizards called? They're iguanas. We saw a giant iguana, and I got quite close to one. I just kept looking at it. I was like, this is such a strange sight. Like, it's crazy that there's a lizard that's this big. It's that same kind of feeling. I looked at these guys. I was like, whoa, what has happened here? That is different. This is something I've just never thought I would see, and yet here we are. But yeah, that's sort of what's been going on in my week. It's been a good week. I'm going to head out to the gym now. It's leg day today, so I'm going to go and work on my legs, and then tonight I'm going to drive down to Melbourne. I'm going to roll the dice because I've got no gigs locked in, but there's a few rooms that are running, so I'm going to go down there and try and tell a couple of funny jokes, see how we go, see if I can get 2 or 3 gigs in if I'm super lucky. But that's about it. Got my wife's birthday tomorrow, 32 years old. Always very stressful the day before a birthday because you're very concerned about whether the gifts that you're buying are appropriate. And I forgot Mother's Day this year, so there's a little bit more pressure on me to really deliver. So I've just got to, once I get the card, once I get the gift, I've just got to have it on the bench. So when I wake up tomorrow morning, that serves as a reminder, and then all is well. but I think she's going to like it. I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes next week. But hey, that's about enough from me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. It's Wednesday today. I hope you have a great rest of your life if this is the last podcast you listen to. But hey, from me to you, stay safe, stay strong, stay pretty, stay sexy. I'll see you all here next week. All right, catch you later.